There was a ship in Dubai that apparently explodes and caused an enormous blast. So, a container ship anchored in Dubai caught fire on Wednesday and exploded, causing an enormous blast that was felt across the city, according to officials and witnesses. The vessel, believed to be an oil tanker, was anchored in Jebel Ali port in the United Arab Emirates, main commercial hub, when the blaze broke out just before midnight, according to a tweet from Dubai's state-run media office and witnesses. The fire is under control and there are no deaths or injuries as a result of the accident, the office wrote, adding, Dubai civil defense teams were responding. Now, cell phone video taken from Dubai high-rises showed an enormous orange fireball erupting in the night sky when the explosion happened, sending tremors as far away as 15 miles from the port, witnesses said. The extent of the damage and if any surrounding cargo were impacted was not immediately clear, and the Jebel Ali port, the largest in the Middle East and one of the biggest in the world, handles cargo from Africa and Asia and is operated by DP World. It has 4 container terminals that can handle some of the globe's biggest vessels. Now, this is interesting because obviously this is a big deal, right? But another thing to really understand is that anytime a container ship, right, ends up exploding or something happens to a container ship, that doesn't just affect obviously the people that were on the ship. It doesn't affect the business that was running the ship. It affects so much infrastructure because of all the goods that were on that ship, right? There's so many businesses that might even close because of that ship exploding, right? There's so many things that can go wrong, in the trickle effect, because people are not going to get their items. Businesses are not going to get their supplies. It's going to slow down a whole bunch of things. It's going to cause things to increase in price on the back end, right? So basically where it comes down to the consumer might not even get whatever they were actually wanting. So there's a lot of effects that come from this that some people may not even realize, right? Because apparently this is a thing where a lot of normal people in this world think that things just show up on the shelf, right? For some reason, people will go to Walmart or something and they think, oh, that meat in the aisle just showed up there. They're always going to have it. Or some people think they're oh, those clothes are always going to be here, right? They just show up, right? And there's some people that actually believe that they just show up. They're in the store, they just show up. And they don't really understand anything that comes in the back end of running a business, right? And it's honestly a little bit disturbing when you start to realize just how little people understand about how things actually end up working, right? And this also kind of goes down into the whole minimum wage debate and all that kind of stuff, right? Because when you increase the minimum wage, that's going to cause basically all the costs to the employer to increase, so they're going to end up having less employees working for them at that higher rate because they need more people that are more capable of creating a higher output for that price point, right? They're going to need more skilled employees at that price point to offset the increased cost. And people don't really understand that. They think that, the entry-level employees should just be paid a higher wage because, they're doing all the work for the businesses, but the businesses take on all the risk. They have to buy all the supplies. They got to deal with all the legislation. They have to deal with all the changing laws within the county, then the state, and also not to mention possibly even just in their city. So there's a lot of things that they end up having to deal with, not to mention they have to pay taxes. They got to deal with all this kind of nonsense, right? So it's just interesting to see something like this because who knows what the long-term effects of this ship exploding. I hope it's not too massive of a effect. But the thing is, Dubai is such a hotspot for commerce. and it's rising so fast that I think this is going to have a pretty strong impact. But the thing is, the good thing about the Emirates, right, is that it's a very wealthy area, like an extremely wealthy area. So for the most part, it's probably not going to affect the majority of the population there just because of how wealthy they are. But it's still going to have some effect. And like, I just hope people are safe. I hope no one was, injured from it, right? Because, they say that, it's under control and there are no deaths or injuries, right? But possibly we'll find out later on. I just really, really hope nothing has actually came from this in like a negative way, because you don't want to see someone catch on fire. You don't want to see someone die from something like this. And you hope that it's not going to affect businesses in that local area so much so that maybe they'll end up having to fire people because of this, because they lost so much money that was on the container that they are either closing down their business, or they got to cut costs by cutting employees, or they got to potentially not have returning customers because of the bad, service that they might be offering to their customers because of this explosion on the container ship. So either way, it's pretty hard to see what was going to happen from this, what might happen from this. It's just not going to be really good, obviously. Feel free to give your thoughts about, what would be the potential effects of something like this, as to like what would it really do to impact, local commerce around that area, around that port. Because I think it's probably going to be something that could affect it in a decent amount, but it might not. And feel free to give your thoughts as to what do you think of Dubai? Because we've all seen videos of Dubai where all the people make so much money, and that there's so much money running around in Dubai and all that kind of stuff, that I believe the police officers also all have supercars. Like, it's such a super rich area that it's almost unbelievable as to what's actually around there and what would people normally see, right? Because like in the United States, it's very rare to see something like a supercar. It's very rare to see something that costs more than $60,000 on the road. But in Dubai, that's like a commonplace thing. That's basically like a Prius. That's basically like a Ford F-150, right? Like Lambos are basically like a Ford F-150 in Dubai. That's how crazy it actually is when it comes down to the sheer amount of money within the United Arab Emirates. Feel free to give your thoughts. We'll see you in future episodes. But this potentially could be very damaging.